So like I said, you're not trying to define it all. We're just trying to touch it, realize it's here. And I mean, we've got such thorough information at the first stages. Here, it's crystallizing, but it's crystallized into special areas. There's still 1,000 different ways that morality or consciousness or friendship can play out. More than one could ever imagine at any one time. But you get closer to seeing more and more. I'm just saying, as you're building up your knowledge of these areas, do it from charts, let it accumulate, and it'll be accumulate on an experiential reality. But these are the roots of how, if you're doing therapy for someone and you're trying to help them do some psychological therapy or align what's better for them, this is the stuff, when you're aligned to living your chart, all the things in your chart are alive, and you feel alive because they're all thriving. When they start being threatened or closed down, it starts imploding. You add alcohol or drugs to it, you got a major collapse and a big gap to overcome to get to trusting the energy itself. So the excitement of the media now is so exciting. We get so much stuff we couldn't get. We had to pay for so long that it's all there, almost free now. But boy, it's absorbing it. It's affecting our social skills. So kids today, they just get together. They don't talk to each other. They just play the same games. Or they interact on the games, but it's a really different way of. So it's shocking. It's exciting now, but there's a cost behind that. In that. So anyways, the security houses, the emotional water houses, these are the more irrational ones. In the water houses, Uranus is going to excite the imagination and the sensations, but as it excites it, it's usually going to come up with, wow, this is incredibly exciting. Oh, well, it's more likely to be worry than anything else, but it can be a breakthrough, emotional breakthroughs where Uranus is. But in the fourth house of security, there's an anxiety around what's secure. I'm never secure. I'm never secure. Oh, geez, come on, get secure, relax. But sometimes that insecurity may bring an innovativeness. And if you know how to fix something in a place or change something, you get innovative in your sense of security, and then other people want to know it, and you're feeling secure around this. It's not so much about the other people. It's you solving it for yourself. Easier to fix the drain yourself, even though you do it half good, than to pay someone a whole bunch of money to come into your backyard, dig it up, and change the pipes and everything, and you're paying for it. It's not even the way you liked it. Okay, so you certainly, if you have Uranus in the fourth house, it would be very difficult to hire someone to come and do something and not watch what they're doing. But if you watch what you're doing, you're like looking over their shoulders, and it's too worrisome. These are not all the examples, just some as I'm pushing. Taking the Uranus principle, throwing it in the eighth house, it's going to imply unstable relationships or really exciting relationship, but implies an innovativeness, a one-sidedness, a freedom in the use of joint resources. So someone you're with someone, they got lots of money, okay, use what you want. That's great. But sometimes if you use it without on someone else's trust, you can make things for yourself that isn't in other people's best interest, and that can backfire and people can leave you alone. So there can be, you can get special breakthroughs from trust. You can have special, when you lose someone's trust, it'll be gone and it'll be hard to replace. Once it breaks, it's hard to replace. So there's an anxiety and a need to work to be able to have freedom of resources without having to worry about it. It's going to take a lot of work to have that. But there's still a tendency to want to try innovative ways or quicker ways to get there. In the 12th house, what's right or wrong, the morality, you have your own take on what's right. Everyone might think we need to, you might think there's a need to, there's so many animal species being lost by the change. There's a need to fix the weather or to stop things that are damaging climate change or stop things that are damaging the environment, or you're concerned about that, and you have but you're the voice of conscience. No, we have to save the animals. We have to save this. So I independently have to do this, even though it may go against the majority of people around you. So there's a need to almost have an independent conscience and something that reinforces your independent conscience. So if you had a straight job and you're just working, you'd have to have something you're dedicated on the side that you could be really free and independent with. So none of it is a total loss where there's a challenge for excitement, for breakthrough, for innovation, but there's a cost of excitement, anxiety, and instability. Saturn is the defenses against both extremes, against too much excitement and too much instability. better to be cautious. But cautious is boring. In the face of Saturn, Uranus wants to break away, but when they can work together, great, huge things can be accomplished. Okay, let's see where we are. So we got through the modes and the elements of the houses. And again, I've been using along the way all the factors. When you just look at a chart, where are we? Okay, good. When you just look at a chart and you see that, oh, it's in the first house, that's my identity house. That means I'm eccentric wherever Uranus is. I'm excitable, eccentric, and I'm going to be different. And that difference, it can look totally weird to someone else or be very idealized for someone else, but this eccentricness is going to be part of their identity. And how do you build up your identity? Not by copying everyone, by having to be a little different. Okay, so it's trying to apply the excitement principle and the anxiety principle. I don't like anxiety because anxiety is really Pluto, but it is a type of worry or restlessness or nervousness. It's like an anxiety, not as intense, but the worry, the anxiety, the shock, the restlessness can come. I'm very independent, or it can be just, I don't fit in there. I can't do that. I can never go there. It can be a very, like, you can have a very low level use of the independence, and you still have some, but you still, even then, you would still have something you're doing yourself that nobody, that's not tied up to anyone else. You know, so I saw a guy the other day somewhere where he was sitting somewhere waiting, but he was knitting. Now, usually you can see girls, but that's that guy doing it, so it stood out. But it makes sense. I often thought, geez, I'm talking all the time. If I could be knitting, I could be multitasking and getting something else done at the same time. So, but that innovativeness, that's the first house. Well, let's start here, back at the third. The need to express oneself differently. I mean, you take any course at school, it's 60, 70% boredom to get the 20 or 30% information that you really need. But you have to get the whole thing to get the pieces. That's boring. So there's a need for excitement. There's a need to learn things differently. There's a need to see alternative ways of doing things, alternative ways of thinking, so that you can express things that you weren't able to otherwise. And usually this is not going to come from brothers and sisters. It's come from thinking for yourself in spite of them. So what their reaction would be, he's got his own take, there's a wing nut there, but it's still, but you're still having to, if you have your answer, you have to be innovative there. You have to look, when that innovation comes, then you'll have to live up to it, Saturn, and make it responsible, but it still shows you where it would come from. In the second house, it's values, talents, resources, money. There's a need to use it for yourself, be independent around it. But there's a tremendous anxiety that you won't do it in the responsible way that everyone would want you to do. You want to use the money for something for yourself, and not everybody's going to agree on it. But you're still going to have to do it for something. If you see it, you're going to have to do it. Or spend it, or use it. So that unconventional, innovative use of resources and talents, that's a nice quality. But the worry about money and anxiety and nobody supporting you and having to do it yourself, that's not. When it starts going above the horizon, you got in the house of conscience. It's also known as the house of endings or isolation or institutionalization. So this is where you're isolated or institutionalized. So it's an independent conscience that might pull you away from the team or group. You might have to hold on independently, even though the world around you believes there's no such thing as climate change. You know, or it could be anything like this. So like, this is the point where you have your innovative take on conscience, so that often the 12th house conscience is tied up to 7th house, good or bad choices. You have a good or bad relationship, you get the results in the conscious belief or faith in each other, or the regret of what happened. How do I fix this? What can I do? I can't go on. So there's you're having to find answers to why you don't fit in your own privacy. You don't fit in here. It doesn't mean you're supposed to sell out. You might be writing, or you might be expressing things in a different way from this. And that could be someone working in an institution, but championing a cause. or being a specialist in a certain way.